Hi, folks. We are posting another Encore episode of the Rocker Dog Podcast this week, given all the busyness of the upcoming Thanksgiving holiday. This time around, we are reposting our conversation with Tegan Quin of Tegan and Sara, which originally aired back in March of 2023 and quickly became one of our most popular episodes to date. As of late, Tegan and Sara have just released a new single, Right on Time, on November 15th. Their graphic novel Crush is available everywhere, and their riveting documentary Fanatical, the Catfishing of Tegan and Sara, is streaming on Hulu. And this is still her double working rocker dog.
My dog is she turned 2 in June, so she's just 2.5 years old. Her name is Georgia, and she is a Border Collie-German Shepherd mix.
Okay. To which I heard you describe as a hell breed.
Yeah. We have a friend who had a dog from the same two dogs, like the same parent dogs, but a litter before ours. And she described it as the hell breed. And we were like, ha 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 ha. And then we got Georgia and we were like, wow. And we mean it in the most affectionate way, but it's a double working dog, very, very. There's no laziness in her. There's no laying around. She wants to be working at all times. She's very protective and alert and determined to be near us at all times. And
that's not a bad thing.
A lot.
Okay.
No, I don't think so.
Well, it's been well documented that it was a struggle when she first came into your life. Your first 6 months you described in a Instagram post as a mix of misery, mystery, and melodrama. I'm wondering, what were the first 24, 48 hours like?
Oh, I just rehashed this with my partner. We've been together. My partner's name's Sophia. We've been together almost 8 years. And we talked, constantly about getting a dog. And it was really just during the pandemic when I was finally off tour and at home for an extended period that we decided to do it. My hang up about getting a dog was always that I wouldn't be home enough to really help out and imprint and really, have a connection with the dog because I travel and tour so much with my band. So when we finally found a dog, because it was really challenging during COVID, they closed the border, all the rescues didn't have dogs. We were trying to get an adult dog. And then a friend of ours called up and said, hey, there's this litter and they have one puppy left. She's a girl and she kind of looks more like a border collie. So nobody has snapped her up. Everyone wanted more like the German Shepherd looking puppies. And we drove about an hour from here to this place in Mission, BC. It was kind of looked like a junkyard. And this guy drove down in a truck and behind this gate just picked up Georgia by her scruff and just held her up between the bars and said we could pet her. And we paid the deposit and we were going on holiday the next day. So we said, can we come back in a week? And he said, that's fine. And she was so docile and quiet and she didn't move or do anything. And we were like, oh, this is so great. She's really calm, just ridiculous. It was probably the first time she'd ever been handled. It became clear as soon as we picked her up that she had just kind of been living in a cage in the back, she'd never really been handled. She'd never seen cars. She'd never been around people. She was really nervous right from the start. So the first 24 hours, my partner drove out, picked her up, and I met her when they got into the city, and we drove over to my sister's because they had a basement suite with a backyard that we could use at their house. And we thought it'd be easier to sort of start the puppy training and the potty training, to be there because I live in an apartment. And on the drive over, I was already overwhelmed because Georgia smelled like pee, she smelled like she'd been living in a cage with a bunch of other puppies. And she was so much bigger and heavier than I expected, but I was already so scared and overwhelmed. And we brought her to my sister's place and we let her run around in the backyard and she wouldn't leave my side. She was really, really close to me right away, laying under my legs, and every time we tried to bring her into the basement suite, to the place where we were staying, she would run back outside. She'd never been inside. So,
right. And
then right away too, we noticed my mom came to visit. And when my sister got home, that was the only time Georgia really made a peep and she would bark at everybody. And I was that was my first sign too, that she'd never really been around, never seen people coming and going. And so, but she fell asleep while we were making dinner And I remember looking at my partner, Sophia, and being like, we nailed this. Like, this is so easy. Like, she's like chill, she's sleeping. And then that night we decided we were going to crate train her right away. And so she slept in her crate, but we put it up on a chair and we slept with the door open and my partner put her hand in the crate and Georgia just like slept on her arm because she didn't want to be alone in the crate. But we really wanted to instill this sort of like safe den like thing. So yeah, the first 24 hours were like very overwhelming, very new, very scary. You know, she peed in the house a couple times and I was like, wow, this is really hard. You know, like there's these things they don't tell you. Like, you know, we put her on a leash and she was like, you know, didn't walk on a
not
leash.
having
Like,
it.
yeah, like there's just all these things. You're like, oh, right, I have to train her how to do all these things. I'm gonna have to introduce all of these things to this dog. So I felt very overwhelmed and very regretful. And yet, like 100% committed. Like I was like, this is our dog. This will be my dog for the rest of her life, you know?
Right from the get-go. Like
Yeah.
in that
Yeah.
first 6 months, again, you didn't have any times where you're like, did I do the wrong thing? Did we do the wrong thing?
Oh, I thought that 1,000 times a day. And the answer was always, yes, we did the wrong thing. We shouldn't have gotten a dog. But I also really understood that it felt hard, but that it would get easier. I believed everybody when they would tell us that, you know, like
Right.
just like having a kid, everyone was like, it gets easier. And I believed that. We also immediately hired a trainer, you know, like we were like, we're going to need help. We're both busy people and we really wanted to have resources right away. So like
Right.
we immediately hired someone to help us. And that really like that within a month, I felt like I had a handle on things. But, you know, we live in a very chaotic neighborhood and Georgia just has like we trained with her, we hand fed her the first year. Like we did everything sort of by the book, but she just as much as she seemed to trust us and love us and flourish when we're around, she also like was a very nervous dog. She like really didn't like I said, I live in a chaotic neighborhood and there were a lot of people on the streets like who just like would try to pet her and touch her and she was just always really nervous with that. And I think everybody was like, introduce your dog to 1 million people, let 1 million people touch her, get bikes and skateboards and this and that's our neighborhood. It's just like chaos. And I think that it backfired. It made her
Right.
it made her more nervous because she'd just never seen anything like that. And so yeah, the first 6 months I was deeply regretful. We spent hours every day walking her, trying to socialize her, trying to help her with her anxieties. Like she got really, really anxious about bikes. So I put my bike in the apartment and we fed her next to my bike and I would ride my bike around and she would just like got used to it. So we would tackle like one problem and then the next week it would be like she hated old people. Like just all of a sudden out of nowhere, if you were like over the age of 50, she was like really nervous and like it just it's endless. And even now, you know, at 2.5 years, she still doesn't really like it when people approach us. But the second she just is left alone for like 30 seconds, then she's a total suck and she loves people and loves dogs and wants to be pet. But she's really initially nervous and we still are working on things 2.5 years later. So that was like really like deeply imprinted on me that this was like a massive responsibility. I became a billboard for like warning people, like anyone in my life thinking about getting a dog, I'd be like, we need to schedule a chat immediately. You must know how hard it is. And I know it's just partly our dog, but yeah, it was really hard.
I also read that you did a ton of research and felt you were well prepared. So my question is, where did that go wrong?
Yeah, I probably will write a book about it at some point. I'll say this. What I learned, because I never had a dog, so I didn't know this, is that just like people, a dog is who they are. It's very breed specific for sure, certain things. Like we studied up on Border Collies and German Shepherds. I knew she was going to be really high energy, need a lot of training, loves to work, lots of games. Like we nailed all of that. Like Georgia is like incredibly obedient. She is like those like police dogs you see online, like, you know, that everyone's yelling in German at. Like she's really obedient. But you know, all that training, I mean, we certainly do a lot to try to build her confidence. She still is just a nervous dog. Her nature is she wants to guard, she wants to protect, she wants to herd, she wants to work. And so when those things came up, I realized that that's not something you get from a trainer who's teaching you how to get your dog to walk on a leash. You know, like I think some of it is just who Georgia is and probably also like you know, because she'd had no real contact with the city, cars, people, she wasn't handled or touched the first couple of months of her life. She just is nervous. Like, and
Right.
I just didn't know also some key things. Like, we're all sort of taught to throw our hand out to let a dog sniff it, which is like,
Yep.
that's something you do to a cat, not a dog. A dog can smell cancer. It doesn't need you to put your hand in its face. Like,
Good point.
and, and right away, like I had like read a lot about eye contact. Like you really want to get your dog to make meaningful eye contact with you. Like we did a lot of food training around that. Like Georgia can hold extended eye contact. She's really great at that, but like she doesn't like it when other people stare at her. And I just like I didn't know any of that. I didn't like really understand how threatened Georgia would be. Like we get into an elevator and she's so cute and everyone stares at her and then she stares at them and then she gets anxious because they won't stop making unbroken eye contact with her. And then they stick their hand out and then they lean over and it's like very scary. Like it's my sister has a baby, he's 7 months. When we go over to the house, I employ a lot of what I learned about dogs with him. I don't get in his face. I don't say, I'm sick. I don't scream at him because if you do that, he cries. Because it's like very overwhelming to have somebody get in your face, stick your hand out, like get crazy, talk baby talk. So Georgia really is me. Like she knows she doesn't like that. She doesn't want you to scream in her face and talk baby talk to her, like takes her a minute to get used to. So like there's a lot that I think went wrong because I just didn't even know what to protect her from. Like I didn't know what to just say to people, like, please don't scream and baby talk at my dog's face. Like she's really nervous. Like I also didn't know, like very early on when people would approach her, she would pee. And it took a minute for me to realize, oh, like she's really anxious. Like we should protect her more. We should get in front of her more. We should be her mom. Like we should stop people. And so some of these things had sort of already imprinted and undoing them has proven to be difficult. But I also just really believe like each dog has its own soul and nature. And I think Georgia's soul and her nature is just to be a little bit unhinged. She's a little nervous,
Right. Well, you mentioned that she's like you in a way. How else is she like you? Like I was looking at some things that you were saying that, you're a free spirit and very independent. Is she also, or, what other ways do you guys either sync up or don't sync up?
Well, it's interesting because my partner, Sophia, she spends obviously a lot of time with Georgia, when I'm touring and traveling. And Sophia has a very big jump reflex, like startle reflex.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually see a lot of Georgia's anxiety more of my partner. I think Georgia had it anyway, but that's where they bond, is they both have like a large startle reflex. And my partner, she does what we call a military check every night before bed. Like she goes and looks in every closet and under the bed. Like she kind of patrols the perimeter of our place. Like that's her nature. And so when we got Georgia, like the first year, Georgia was always sort of in a command. We'd be like, okay, heel. And she would walk the perimeter with Sophia and check underneath everything. Like, so they kind of like encouraged, like it was like they encouraged each other's anxieties in a way. The parts of Georgia I think that I really get are like that I'm a little suspect with new people, but then I really open up and feel like I'm a total extrovert and I love being social. And Georgia has no chill. Like once she's settled down and people in her house, it's like she just wants constant pets and attention, and she's just moves from person to person, sniffing. Anyone gets up to go to the bathroom, she walks with them to the bathroom. She's just like kind of me. She's like kind of wants to sort of be in everyone's face and know everything that's going on at all times. And she's just like, she's a real cuddle bug too. Since she was a puppy, our trainer had said, like, the first year, don't let your dog up on your furniture if you want them to have respect for your stuff. And we were like, that's gonna be impossible. But we made it almost a year. But instead of letting her on the bed or on the couch, I would just get in her bed with her. So every night when we'd watch TV, I would climb into her dog bed. And at first she would get out. And just slowly over time, we kind of built up this trust with each other. And now, like every night before bed, I like go and crawl into her bed and she like curls up with me. And like but if my partner tries to do it, Georgia will just get up because she's like the alpha in the house,
Right.
And so like I think Georgia's like, oh, that's mom's bed now. But yeah, she's just like can be really sweet and she's very social.
Okay. In that first 6 month or year, can you pinpoint a turning point where things did shift for the better, at least for you mentally or behavior wise? Was there, kind of a week could look back on and say, gosh, did you notice,
Yeah. To be totally honest, I mean, there were moments certainly in the first year where I started to feel like I got a handle on things, but actually it was at a year that I was on a hike with Georgia and a bunch of guys were standing in the middle of this trail and went to reach for her when we walked by, and she reacted like did like a very aggressive bark and kind of lunged. And I like basically, no joke, like I had a full breakdown afterwards because I was just like, this is so hard. It feels like it's getting worse, not better. And we'd been doing so much training and it was really hard. And my partner and I, we actually went to therapy because my partner had wanted the dog so much and I hadn't. But when I finally came around and got a dog, and then we got Georgia there were so many issues. I think I felt guilty saying how hard I felt it was because I didn't want Sophia to feel bad. And Sophia felt like she can talk about, she was also struggling, but she was like, oh, I wanted this dog so bad. I can't complain. And so I think when that altercation happened with those guys on the hike, it was like we finally realized like we had to go and talk. Like it was overwhelming our life, like our life. Like we talked about her all the time. Like we were so it just had taken over everything. And within like 30 seconds, it felt like of going into therapy to talk about Georgia, it became more about like how Sophia and I communicate.
Right,
And,
right.
and I really noticed a remarkable change after that in just how we dealt with it. Like we did start talking about Georgia less. And we also started to kind of be like, well, Georgia just has these things, you know, but within a few months, we got into our original trainer and did a drop off, like literally sent her for like 3 weeks. And he was like, let me help with this. Like, cause this is, you know, it can escalate and she could end up really like hurting someone if someone tried to touch her. And when we got her back, she was far from perfect. Like it wasn't, you know, nobody promised perfect, but she was so much better, like with that sort of thing. And we started to do in-person training, go to the mall, go to Starbucks and like try to get people to pet our dog and like worked with her on that. And so I'd say like about 14 months after we got her, that's when it shifted for me. And one of the things that shifted was I was just like, I wouldn't give Georgia up for anything. And so if this is just a thing we have to be mindful of, if this is just part of Georgia, like she just doesn't like to be pet on leash, then I can deal with that. And I can just, when she does react now, I feel less upset about it. And I think like that's when everything else started to be amplified. Like she's just so good on leash. She's runs 5K with me in a perfect heel, like ears down, working. Like she's just so sweet. She's so smart. And every morning now I get up and I go get her at like 6 a.m. out of the crate and let her sleep in bed with me because I just like love being close to her. And like she's just so sweet. My sister brought her baby over in Georgia, laid at their feet, you know, like she's really protective. And like, you know, I'm just starting to like look at the things she's really good at. She's never destroyed a piece of furniture. She's never eaten anything in our house. She almost like 100% perfect recall. Like there's so many things about her that are awesome. The fact that she doesn't like little dogs and does not like it when someone tries to pet her on leash, I could deal with that. And I think when that shifted in my brain, I started to just really focus on the things she's really great about, you know?
Right, right. You just mentioned, you know, the little dog, and you keep mentioning bikes, cars, other people. How is she around other dogs? Was that also an issue?
She's amazing around other dogs. She's definitely reactive, but on the positive side, like she's really hyped when she sees dogs. She really likes to be around dogs. She's a part of a wolf, this company is called Wolf Pack here in Vancouver, and the guy who runs it, his name's Ian. He's amazing. He has 2 packs he takes out, one in the morning, one in the afternoon, and Georgia's in the morning pack. And it's like 15 medium to large size dogs, and they're off leash, like at the beach, and she's amazing. Our original trainer works with a lot of really, really, really active dogs and dogs in muzzles. And so they do a new puppy program and they train them to stay away from dogs with muzzles and to like, she takes cues really well. If she gets a correction in the park, like if a dog has a toy and gives a correction to Georgia, Georgia never goes back to that dog again. So she's got really excellent dog manners. The little dog thing, it's perplexing to me. Part of it is like my little dog bias, which I think little dogs aren't often not very well trained because they're small and you can just pick them up if they bark or so. Yeah. But yeah, like there's like specific little dogs like in our neighborhood where they just go ape shit when they see Georgia, and Georgia, she'll let off a bark from time to time, but I always correct it. I definitely try not to let her get away with that. Like I don't want her to be that way. But then it's so interesting in the dog park off leash. She's great with all dogs of all sizes. She plays really well with puppies. You know, when we bring dogs into our house, she's amazing. She doesn't resource guard. She's not territorial over toys. I'll say like if someone comes to our door, she's letting us know. We tried to train that out of her. We were like, oh, we don't want her to bark. Like she can let off like a couple barks, but she needs to let us know. But she's trained now. She'll bark. She'll run to the door, bark a few times, and then we say crate, and she runs to her crate, and then she just does I think it's the cutest thing in the world, but she just lays in her crate and goes, oh, woo, 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 or woof, woof, a quiet woofs, and which is great. That's fine with me. I'm like, yep, thank you for letting us know. But yeah, so she's good. She's really good with dogs, which is such a blessing. I really appreciate that she's great with dogs, but she's really excited by dogs. So we still do a lot of like creating distance because we adhere to the like don't let your dog say hi to dogs on leash thing. Dogs she knows really well, we will. And if a dog is off leash and approaches Georgia and we're not like in the middle of the street, I drop the leash because I do believe that Georgia probably would react differently if I was still holding the leash with a dog that you know. But yeah, we've had great luck there.
Now, I've seen on Instagram you have a tattoo of Georgia. Take me through the creative process of that. Like at what point of the relationship that we just got done discussing were you like, I'm going to get a tattoo, and not only am I going to get a tattoo, but this is the style of the tattoo I'm going to get, and this is the place where I'm going to get it?
Yeah, so I definitely never thought I'd be the person who would get their animal tattooed on them. Part of it was that reason where I was like, this is hilarious, so I'm going to do it. But I got the tattoo this past spring, so about a month before the 2-year anniversary of getting Georgia. Yeah, it was sort of to commemorate how far we've come. She's made such an impact in my life, like a permanent change in my life, and it felt worthy of a permanent mark on my body. I'm covered in tattoos, and my tattoos are always related to like what I feel are like big monumental things that have happened in my life. So Georgia felt absolutely worthy of that. And I was in Calgary. Sarah and I wrote a memoir about the 90s and starting our band, and we made it into a TV show for Amazon. So we were shooting in Calgary. The guitar teacher who worked with the twins on the show, Mason, he is a tattoo artist on the side. And so he does this like very specific, kind of old school style of tattooing and does pet portraits, oddly. And I was looking at his Instagram and was like, I'm going to let Mason do a pet portrait for me. So I sent him some images, and he ended up putting a really cute photo of her with her tongue kind of hanging out of her mouth, but it's framed by the state of Georgia. And her name is an homage to my family who lives in Georgia. And so it's her face framed by the state of Georgia with a Georgia peach. And I got it on my thigh. I got it like above my left knee. Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And I love it.
You need to post a better, clearer photo of it.
I will.
I've only caught it once on one of your shots, and I was, like the peach. I didn't see the peach. I didn't see the shape of the state. So,
okay,
for my sake, or send me one so I can post. I'd be happy to do so.
Okay.
If there's one thing you could change about Georgia, what would it be?
Well, of course, this is the trap, right? Because once you start changing someone, you're not really loving them for who they are. And I think maybe that's been part of my journey, is just I've accepted certain things about Georgia. Of course, we work at it all the time. I mean, this weekend we went to a very busy part of town where there's a million dogs because I've been away for a few weeks, and I said I want to walk Georgia past a ton of dogs. I want to make sure she feels safe and secure, like connect with her. So, we work on all of her trouble issues all the time. Of course, I'd love to snap my fingers and have Georgia just be super chill on leash and not react. But we'll just work on that. That's just like kind of part of the journey. And, sometimes like a few times scary people have approached me. I live in a difficult neighborhood to some degree. There's sometimes people that are not awesome. And I think that's where some of her reactivity came from. When she was a puppy, she was so cute. She was like a magnet for all people. And one time I was chased by somebody who was like not in a good mental state and was like very erratic. And I was yelling at him to like off basically. And Georgia just started barking crazily. And I think some of her reactivity probably stems from some of those early incidents that happened. And so Sometimes when I'm out taking her for a walk at night and someone sketchy approaches and Georgia starts growling and they cross the street, I'm like, you know what? I don't really like having a German Shepherd looking dog who's protecting me. So yeah, I probably wouldn't change anything about her. You know, I'm happy to just be that. That's part of our journey is we're just going to keep working on it together.
Great answer. It's funny because my last guest that I spoke with last week, we came to the conclusion that that would be a good question. I didn't even ask her that question. It was kind of in the, after we turned off the mic.
Cool.
I was like, I'm going to save that for my next interview, but it's such a great answer because it is, and I've talked to guests before about, you can't change the wild instinct that makes a dog a dog.
And I don't think I knew that, like I think honestly, as someone who'd never had a dog, I just thought, well, we'll pay for really good training and and we had amazing resources. I'm really lucky in that way. We have lots of disposable income to throw at Georgia. So we did like swimming lessons and 2 different trainers. And then we hired someone who just did off leash training with us. Like, I just thought, oh, we'll just train her and she'll be perfect. And it's like who a dog is and that wild instinct is in them. Like the fact that Georgia naturally herded us as a puppy. And even now it's a treat we give her. Sometimes we'll take her to the park and we'll let her herd us. Like we'll let her corral us, and like the joy, she's on 2 wait lists right now to go to sheep farms to learn to herd. Like I know that's in her and I don't want to change that,
That'd be awesome. I love the story. I can't remember where I read it, but you said, and you were mentioning it earlier when you're jogging with her and she's right on heel, that she'll every so often her nose bumps your back of your knee.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. The first time it happened, I was like, this is cool. Like even just to see like her, because she does have the German Shepherd ears, like that it just went back into working mode. Like when she's walking in working mode, it's so pleasurable. And yeah, when she does the tapping, it's and makes the eye contact with me, I'm like, I love that, because I do think that she would be better off on a farm herding sheep all day, but she's not. She's living in Gastown with me in Vancouver. And so, I'd love to pay homage to her natural instincts.
All right. Well, we wrap up the show with what I call the Zoomies, and those are 5 quick questions. So the first question is, do you kiss Georgia on the lips? Well, the mouth.
Oh yeah. I give her so many kisses. I let her lick my face for sure. It's disgusting. I love it.
Okay, good. That's my answer, but it's usually like a 50-50 split with my guests.
Yeah.
Question 2 is, given your occupation, has she licked anybody famous, for lack of a better word? Any fellow musicians or any well-known celebrities?
No, I don't think so. I mean, she's met a lot of people who I know. So yeah, I mean, I guess recently I had actor and comedian Cameron Esposito over. And so she's licked Cameron Esposito's hand.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good answer.
and Jess Rona, who's she's like a famous groomer and comedian and writer, has an amazing Instagram account called Jess Rona Grooming, makes these amazing videos. She's very close with Jess. So she knows very famous Jess Rona.
Okay, great. And she directed your videos too.
She directed a video of ours with dogs, and she grooms Katy Perry's dogs and like lots of actors. So
that's great. When
Georgia got groomed by Jess the first time, Jess sent me a photo of Georgia on one side of the couch and Katy Perry's dog Nugget on the other side of the couch. Very
That's
cute.
Awesome. Yes. That's awesome. I love it. Question 3 is, if Georgia had a theme song, what theme song would you give her?
Oh man, it's overwhelming. We make up songs about her all the time, but God, I don't know. I'm pulling a blank. As a musician, I can't even believe that. I'm horrified that I can't even think of one. I can't even just pick a random song. I'm like completely and totally baffled. And like, maybe listeners should make suggestions of what, now listening to what my dog's like, what would be her theme song.
Okay. That'll be a good Instagram post to get people engaged.
Yeah.
Question 4, do you have a dog voice?
Oh, of course. Oh my God. Do you want to hear it?
I do.
Of course you do. Yes. So I have a voice I talk to Georgia in, but we have a voice for Georgia. So Georgia's voice is, oh my God, where's my mom's? Why is my mom's not here? And if we start talking like that, she runs over and stares at us and we're like, stop talking about me. That's her voice.
I love it. Love it. And finally, is there a dog organization, charity, rescue, anything that you'd like to just give a shout out to while you got a live mic?
Yeah, for sure. We were just in Mexico on vacation, and we went for dinner right next door to this place called Acre or Accra, and they have a huge dog rescue. They have like a farm, and they have like a hotel and restaurant and stuff, but they have a rescue there, and the site's Acre Dogs. It's funny because I got really obsessed with their Instagram, and when we decided we were going to get a dog, we applied for a dog through them because they just rescue dogs in Mexico, but they never responded. So, but that's fine. We got Georgia. It's totally fine.
Yeah, it all worked out in the end.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for giving me your time. It was a pleasure talking to you and hearing about Georgia, and it was great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. There's really nothing I like more than talking about Georgia. So it's really all me thanking you because it was a pleasure. So
Thank you. Likewise.